Alright, I hope you guys are ready, because in this tutorial we're gonna take this one big form and break it down into a multi-step form. And we're gonna use one of my favorite tools for this. It's called React Hook Form. And after this tutorial, you're gonna be master on using it. So let's get ready and let's get right into it. To code along with me, clone this repository from GitHub. The link is in the description. So at first, let's start by breaking down this form into 3 different parts. We want the personal, billing, and legal information to be on 3 different steps on the form. And to keep track on in which step of the form we are gonna use useState in React. So let's start by creating some variables here. We're gonna have form step and set form step. And it's gonna be from React use state. And the default is gonna be 0. Okay, so let's divide each of the sections into sections. So for the personal information, let's wrap it inside this section tags. Like this. And then wrap this inside curly braces. And then we can say if form step equals 0, then show this one. And nothing should change. But if we change the default state to 1, it's going to disappear from here. And if it's changed to 0, it's gonna come back. And now we can copy and paste this for the other sections too. So I'm just gonna copy and paste. And of course, for the billing information, we want the form step to equal 1. And for the legal information, we want the form step to be 2. So let's save it and let's play around to see if it's working. So with 1, we should see the billing information, and 2 should be legal. Okay, it's working great so far. So now what we have to do is every time the user types something here and the form is valid and they click on this button, it goes to the next step. So let's write a function that completes the step, and we can just call it complete form step. And we're just gonna increase the form step by 1. Like this. And let's add it to the button. So on the click, complete form step. And we're gonna change this type from submit to button. And let's rename it from create account to next step. Let's save it and see if it works. So I'm click on it and it goes to the next one, next, and the final step. Of course, right now we're in the step 3, which doesn't exist. So we can actually create one. Maybe we can have a section that says something like, congratulations, you created your account successfully. So let's do it right now. I'm just gonna copy and paste this and just change some of the information there. So when form step equals 3, we want header saying congratulations. Let's save it and we should see it here. All right, perfect. And of course, we don't want to show the button here. So we need to kind of conditionally render the button. That if the step is less than 3, we want to show the button. So what we can do is actually create a function that renders the button. So I'm gonna cut this one here. And let's write the function. Let's call it render button. And if form step is less than, actually we can do if form step is more than 2, then we're gonna return undefined, and else we're gonna return the button. I'm gonna refresh the page so we can see how it's working. And then we're gonna, of course, use this render button here. So right at the end, render button. Nice. So personal information, next step. Billing information, next step. And actually here, this is the last step of the form. So we can say here, create account instead of next step. So let's code it in here. So else if form step equals 2, then we wanna render this button that says create account. Okay, perfect. And if we click on it, no button. All right, awesome. If you wanna do this in production, you probably want to refactor this into its separate component, but I'm just gonna keep everything in one file in this tutorial. Okay, so let's move on to the actual tutorial, how we are gonna add React hook form for this form. So let's start by installing it. I just use yarn, so yarn add React hook form. Okay, so because it's React library, it uses hooks, so we can import use form from React hook form. And in the React way, we can just destructure some values from here. The first one we're gonna get is something called watch. And what watch does, it listens to the form state in real time, so we can always keep track of what's going on. And we can use this to visualize what is going on in our form. So I'm going to add a helper block at the bottom of the form so we can see what's going on. So right at the bottom, I'm gonna add pre-tags, which render pre-formatted text. And then I'm gonna use JSON stringify to render our form state. And we can see it right here. And currently, there's nothing in our form state. And even if I write something from the username, it doesn't show up here. So to register the inputs, we need to, register them. So from the use form, we're also gonna use register. And in our input, right here, we're gonna use ref equals register. And I'm going to save it, and it's gonna show up right here. That's how easy it is to register different inputs. And you can see the key for the value is going to be username. This comes from the name of the input right here. So next, let's add some validation for this. So for the username, we want it to be required. Otherwise, we're going to show an error message. So to add a validation, we're going to add an object here, and we're going to validate if it's required. And the required, we want to be true. Otherwise, we're gonna show a message like, please type a username. If we go here and no username, we don't see any error. So let's render that one. To get the current errors in the form, we need to use something called form state, which is an object, so we can destructure it even further. So we want the errors. So if errors username, then we want to render errors username message like this. And nothing shows up. Why? This is because the default validation mode for React Hook form is it validates only when you submit the form. But what we want to have is that it validates on every key press. So let's add it right here. In the use form, we're gonna add an object and set the mode to all. Okay, after I refresh the page, we can now see the error message here. And it updates in real time. Let's style the error message a little bit so it looks more like an error message. And I'm using Tailwind CSS for the styling. So let's change the text to be red. Let's make it small and add a little bit of margin to the top. All right, that's how easy it is to style elements with Tailwind. If you're not familiar with Tailwind, you're in good luck because I made an amazing tutorial that shows the latest features on it. So click on the card on the top right corner to check the video out. Now there's one more problem here. Even though the form is not valid, the button is still enabled. What we want to do is when the form is invalid, we want to disable the button. So in the form state, let's get is valid. All right. And in our button, it's going to be disabled if the form is not valid. Let's save it, and yes, we can see it's disabled. And let's copy this for the create account button too. Done. Okay, so after I fill the username, the button comes valid, and I go to the next step, and we can see the username disappeared from the form state. And this is something we don't want to happen. And why this happens is when we unmount the component from the document, it automatically unregisters it. All of the components need to be registered so their value is in the state. So we want to register the input when it's the correct form step, but we never want to unregister it. So instead of saying when the form step equals 0, what we can say is when it's equal or larger than 0. This way we can have in the billing information step, we still have the username value in there. But of course, we don't want to show it in the form. We just want to have the value. So for this one, we can use CSS to hide the element. So let's add a class here and say if the form step equals 0, then we want the display to be block. Otherwise, we want the display to be hidden. And this way it hides it in the form, but still keeps the value. Now let's copy and paste this for the other sections too. So for this one, we want the form step to be 1, and this larger or equal to 1. And this one 2. Okay, let's save it out and see if it works. I'm gonna refresh the page and let's see. Username, address. Okay, we need to register the address as it's not showing here. So I'm just gonna copy and paste this one. And please type an address. We have address shown here, and let's also copy the error message. please type an address. Okay. And next step, let's also register the checkboxes here. For the checkboxes, we don't want to show any error message. So instead of typing the validation like this, we can just type required true. And let's copy and paste this for the other input too. Done. And let's see if it works. Yeah, both need to be checked. So create account and done. Congratulations. All right, we're in good start now. Now it says congratulations, but we didn't actually submit the form. We actually didn't do anything. So let's add the functionality that when you press the create account button in the last step, it's going to submit the form. And in this case, we don't have any REST API where to submit, so we can just alert it on the window. So let's do it now. To handle the submission, we need to get another function from here called handle submit. And let's write a function for submitting the form. So submit form that is gonna take the values from the form as the parameter. And let's do window alert JSON stringify values null 2. And then we're gonna complete the form step. And we're gonna use this one in the form. So form on submit handle submit submit form. And in our button, the create account button, we don't want to have any on click handler here, and we want to change the type to submit. Right, I'm gonna refresh the page and let's see if it works out. So username, address, accept, and boom, it alerts the form data here. And after it's done, it's going to go to the next step. All right, awesome. It's working really well, so I can remove this helper from here. So let's go to the bottom and just remove this one. Nice. Now we can add a little bit of design for the form. So another great thing is, one great thing to add is kind of a counter that tells the user how many steps are in the form and in what step they are currently in. So I'm gonna add here a variable called max steps. That's gonna be 3. And in our form, let's do right over here. We can say step form step of max steps, and I'm gonna refresh. So step 0 out of 3, step 1 out of 3, so it works fine. But we programmers like to start counting from 0. But I guess for normal people, they like counting from 1. So we can say step form step plus 1 of max steps. Address and last step, create account. Boom. And here it shows step 4 out of 3. And we don't want to show the step counter here, so let's just hide it if it's in the last step. So only if form steps are less than max steps, we want to show this. Save it and done. Let's add just a little bit of styling for it so it doesn't look so bad. So let's make it small. A little bit of lighter gray and a little bit of margin for the bottom. Okay, that's decent for me. Now, one extra feature we can add is a small icon that allows the user to go to the previous step if they accidentally write some information wrong. So let's get a nice icon from heroicons.com. And I want a chevron icon. So the chevron left, I'm gonna copy the SVG and I'm gonna make a button here. Of course, nothing shows up, so we need to add some styling here. Let's add the width to maybe 6. And text to pretty light gray, maybe 400. Awesome. And let's add some hover effect. So on hover, text gray is 600. Perfect. And to make this on the same line, we can use flexbox. So in the div, class name flex, items center. Oh yeah, we have the margin here, so let's cut it from here and add to the flex. Nice. And I'm gonna add a little bit of margin for the button too, so it's not so close to the text. So margin right 2. All right, and now the functionality to go to the previous step. So let's write a function for it. So go to previous step and set form step current value -1. Copy and add it to the button. So on click, go to previous step. Let's see if it works out. So fill username and oh yeah, we need to change the, what is that? The button type to button. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, now it works out. And of course, in the first step, we don't want to show the button at all. So we want to only show it if the form step is larger than 0. Perfect. But one problem here is if I fill these ones, go to the previous step, and then go to the next step, we lost all the information. But I feel like it's not that big of a deal. So I'm happy with it. All right, guys, that's the tutorial. Hope you enjoyed watching it. And if you want to see more tutorials about React, Tailwind, and software engineering in general, hit the subscribe button and of course like the video. If you are curious on how I styled this form, I use something called Tailwind CSS. And you're in good luck because I created a whole playlist of all of my Tailwind tutorials that you can check right here. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and I see you guys next time.